With birth as condition, be it aging and death, so it was said. Now monks, do aging and death have birth as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case? And they replied, aging and death have birth as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case, with birth as condition, aging and death. With being as condition, birth, so it was said. Now monks, does birth have being as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case? Birth has being as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case, with being as condition, birth. With clinging as condition, being, so it was said. Now monks, does being have clinging as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case? Being has clinging as condition, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case, with clinging as condition, being. With craving as condition, clinging, so it was said. Now monks, does clinging have craving as condition or not? Or how do you take it in this case? So the Buddha asked them in this way for all the 12 links of dependent origination, and they answered the Buddha in the same way. Then the Buddha said, good monks, so you say thus, and I also say thus. When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. That is, with ignorance as condition, volition comes to be. With volition as condition, consciousness, etc. Up to aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair come to be. Such the origin of this whole mass of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is giving this formula for dependent origination in a concise form. When this exists, that comes to be. With the arising of this, that arises. So when something exists, it brings about something else that arises. Because of arising of this, it brings on the arising of that. But with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance comes cessation of volition. With the cessation of volition, cessation of consciousness. With the cessation of consciousness, cessation of mentality, materiality. With the cessation of mentality, materiality, cessation of the sixfold base. With the cessation of the sixfold base, cessation of contact. With the cessation of contact, cessation of feeling. With the cessation of feeling, cessation of craving. With the cessation of craving, cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of being. With the cessation of being, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. With the cessation of birth, cessation of aging and death, so it was said. Now monks, do aging and death cease with the cessation of birth or not? Or how do you take it in this case? Aging and death cease with the cessation of birth, Venerable Sir. Thus we take it in this case, with the cessation of birth, cessation of aging and death. So in the same way, the Buddha repeats, asks them the whole of the 12 links, and they answer in the same way. Good monks, so you say thus, and I also say thus. When this does not exist, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases. That is, with the cessation of ignorance comes cessation of volition. With the cessation of volition, cessation of consciousness. With the cessation of consciousness, cessation of mentality, materiality. With the cessation of mentality, materiality, cessation of the sixfold base. With the cessation of the sixfold base, cessation of contact. With the cessation of contact, cessation of feeling. With the cessation of feeling, cessation of craving. With the cessation of craving, cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of being. With the cessation of being, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. So here the Buddha says, when this does not exist, when this ceases, that does not come to be. With the cessation of this, that ceases. Monks, knowing and seeing in this way, would you run back to the past thus? Were we in the past? Were we not in the past? What were we in the past? How were we in the past? Having been what? What did we become in the past? No, Venerable Sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you run forward to the future thus? Shall we be in the future? Shall we not be in the future? What shall we be in the future? How shall we be in the future? Having been what? What shall we become in the future? No, Venerable Sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you now be inwardly perplexed about the present thus? Am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? Where has this being come from? Where will it go? No, Venerable Sir. Monks, knowing and seeing in this way, would you speak thus? Before I come to that. So here the Buddha is saying that if a monk understands dependent origination, he understands that all are due to conditions. Then he would not run into the past. He would not think of his past. Who was he in the past and all these things. And he would also not think of the future. And he would not be perplexed or doubtful about the present, whether he exists or not and all this. Monks, knowing and seeing this way, would you speak thus? The teacher is respected by us. We speak as we do out of respect for the teacher. No, Venerable Sir. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is asking them, when you know and you see, do you say that we speak in this way, we answer in this way out of respect for the teacher? And they said, no, Venerable Sir. What they mean is that it is because they understand that they answer in this way, and they speak in this way, they speak according to the Dhamma in this way, not because of respect for the teacher, not because of respect for the Buddha, but because they personally understand and see things clearly, not just out of respect for the Buddha. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you speak thus? The recluse says this, and so do other recluses, but we do not speak thus. No, Venerable Sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you acknowledge another teacher? No, Venerable Sir. Knowing and seeing in this way, would you return to the observances, tumultuous debates, and auspicious signs of ordinary recluses and Brahmins, taking them as the core of the holy life? No, Venerable Sir. Do you speak only of what you have known, seen, and understood for yourselves? Yes, Venerable Sir. Good monks, so you have been guided by me with this Dhamma, which is visible here and now, immediately effective, inviting inspection, onward leading, to be experienced by the wise for themselves. For it was with reference to this that it has been said, monks, this Dhamma is visible here and now, immediately effective, inviting inspection, onward leading, to be experienced by the wise for themselves. Stop here for a moment. So here Buddha asked them, do you speak only of what you have known, seen and understood for yourselves? And they said, yes, Venerable Sir. So in other words, they have seen the Dhamma, they have understood the Dhamma, not just know the theory, they have seen it as it actually is. So that is the purpose of the Dhamma, for us to understand, to see clearly, not just for knowledge's sake. Monks, the conception of an embryo in a womb takes place through the union of three things. Here, there is the union of the mother and father, but it is not the mother's season, and the being to be reborn is not present. In this case, there is no conception of an embryo in a womb. Here, there is the union of the mother and father. It is the mother's season, but the being to be reborn is not present. In this case, too, there is no conception of an embryo in a womb. But when there is the union of the mother and father, and it is the mother's season, and the being to be reborn is present, through the union of these three things, the conception of an embryo in a womb takes place. I'll stop here for a moment. So, a being can be born in the womb, that means human birth or animal birth, only with three conditions. First, the mother and father must come together. And then secondly, it is the mother's season. The mother is fertile. There's the egg there. And the being to be born is present. This being, I think in the suttas is called the Gandhabba. So when the egg is fertilized in the womb, then this Gandhabba, this being to be born, enters the womb and lodges itself in the fertilized egg and the embryo, So in the Buddha's teachings, it is not like what the Abhidhamma says, that nothing enters the womb. And here there is a Gandhabba being that enters the womb. In some books, it is called the intermediate body that enters the womb. In Chinese, they call it what? Zhong Yin Shen, and also like this Ling Hun. So this being that enters the womb, you can call it a soul or so. It's just a bundle of energy that enters the womb. The difference between the soul in other religions and in Buddhism is that in other religions the soul is something that is permanent, everlasting, unchanging. But in Buddhism, everything is a flux of conditions. Everything in the world, including the soul, is just a bundle of energy. There's no difference between a human being as a bundle of energy and a ghost as a bundle of energy, or a deva as a bundle of energy, or a soul as a bundle of energy. That's why you can see in one of the psychic powers of the Buddha, from the human body of the Buddha, this astral body can come out through his head, and he can go and talk to his disciples with the astral body. So this concept of a soul, although many monks say there is no soul, it is just a wrong translation. The word anatta is not that there is no soul. The word anatta means there is no being that is unchanging, permanent, everlasting. Everything is changing. There's no single thing. Even the cell, so small, is changing. Even an atom, so small, is changing. The mother then carries the embryo in her womb for 9 or 10 months with much anxiety as a heavy burden. Then at the end of 9 or 10 months, the mother gives birth with much anxiety as a heavy burden. Then when the child is born, she nourishes it with her own blood. For the mother's breast milk is called blood in the noble one's discipline. When he grows up and his faculties mature, the child plays at such games as toy plows, tip cat, somersaults, toy windmills, toy measures, toy cars, and a toy bow and arrow. When he grows up and his faculties mature still further, the youth enjoys himself provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, with forms cognizable by the eye, sounds, odors, flavors, tangibles that are wished for, desired, agreeable and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. Stop here for a moment. So this embryo is born and then grows up, and as a child he plays with childish toys, games. But when he grows up, then he wants to enjoy the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. On seeing a form with the eye, he lusts after it if it is pleasing. He dislikes it if it is unpleasing. He abides with mindfulness of the body, unestablished, with a limited mind, and he does not understand as it actually is the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. Engaged as he is in favoring and opposing, whatever feeling he feels, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, he delights in that feeling, welcomes it, and remains holding to it. As he does so, delight arises in him. Now delight in feelings is clinging. With his clinging as condition, being comes to be. With being as condition, birth. With birth as condition, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. Similarly, on hearing a sound with the ear, smelling an odor, tasting a flavor, touching a tangible, cognizing a mind object, he lusts after it if it is pleasing. He dislikes it if it is unpleasing. Now delight in feelings is clinging. With clinging as condition, being comes to be. With being as condition, birth. With birth as condition, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair come to be. Such is the origin of this whole mass of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is talking about an ordinary person. After he's born, he grows up, and then he enjoys the 5 chords of sensual pleasure. And when he enjoys the 5 chords of sensual pleasure, he lusts after it if it is pleasing, and dislikes it if it is unpleasing. And because of that, he goes round the cycle of births and deaths. Here monks, a Tathagata appears in the world, Arahant Sammasambuddha, etc. So this is same as Sutta 27, Majjhima Nikaya, paragraph 11 to 18. This is a description of charana, how a person after listening to the Dhamma of the Buddha becomes a monk, and then after that he cultivates the practice of a monk or the conduct of a monk, and then he purifies his mind from doubt. Having thus abandoned these 5 hindrances, imperfections of the mind that weaken wisdom, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters upon and abides in the first jhana. With the stilling of applied and sustained thought, he enters upon and abides in the second jhana. With the fading away as well of delight, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, he enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which is neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of and utter purity of sati and equanimity. So this monk, after becoming a monk, he practices the conduct of a monk and then attains the 4 jhanas. Then, on seeing a form with the eye, he does not lust after it if it is pleasing. He does not dislike it if it is unpleasing. He abides with mindfulness of the body established with an immeasurable mind, and he understands as it actually is the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom, wherein those evil unwholesome states cease without remainder. Having thus abandoned favoring and opposing, whatever feeling he feels, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, he does not delight in that feeling, welcome it or remain holding to it. As he does not do so, delight in feeling ceases in him. With the cessation of his delight comes cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of being. With the cessation of being, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Similarly, on hearing a sound with the ears, smelling an odor, tasting a flavor, touching a tangible, cognizing a mind object, he does not lust after it if it is pleasing. He does not dislike it if it is unpleasing. With the cessation of his delight comes cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of being. With the cessation of being, cessation of birth. With the cessation of birth, aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair cease. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Monks, remember this deliverance through the destruction of craving, as taught in brief by me. But the monk Sati, son of a fisherman, is caught up in a vast net of craving, in the trammel of craving. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. It's the end of the sutta. So here this sutta, the Buddha, in trying to teach the deliverance through the destruction of craving, he brings in the 12 links of dependent origination, how all things arise through conditions and cease through conditions. But you notice in this last part, the Buddha says this person having renounced, then he practices charana, the conduct of a monk, then he abandons the 5 hindrances, attains the 4 jhanas. After he attains the 4 jhanas, then on seeing a form with the eye, he does not lust after it if it is pleasing. He does not dislike it if it is unpleasing. Because he does not delight in and feeling, welcome it or remain holding it to it, then there is, with the cessation of delight comes cessation of clinging. With the cessation of clinging, cessation of being, birth, aging and death, etc. And he becomes liberated. So you see, for him to do that, he can only do that after the 4 jhanas. After he has attained the 4 jhanas, then his mind is so clear and strong that he can remain unmoving as far as feeling is concerned. He is not moved by feelings. So the Buddha always quotes the attainment of these 4 jhanas as a way to liberation. That's all we have time for tonight. Anything to discuss?
Thank you. Just want to check on the Buddha described the monk Sati as being caught up in a vast net of craving and a camel of craving. So at first he apprehended him because he has wrong view and thinking that consciousness is permanent. I think 361 message.
Yeah.
So was wondering, could it be that it's more than just his wrong view than
I think what the Buddha is trying to say, that saying about him caught up in craving is that he has not seen non-self because if you say it is the same consciousness that runs and wanders through the round of rebirths, then that means it is unchanging consciousness. That would be the self. So when you have the self, then you have the craving. So probably that is what the Buddha's meant. It's not let go of the self.
This dependent origination, does it apply in the Rupa and Arupa world?
This one, the Buddha, 12 links of dependent origination, is basically about human beings. But if we investigate, let's see, does it apply? This ignorance applies. Volition also applies. Yeah.
Because the other night you mentioned in the power certain beings only have body, no consciousness, and in the Arupa world, something only with consciousness. But in the dependent origination, the consciousness and the Rupa have to arise at the same time.
Yes, but this applies only to normal beings with consciousness. Because that state, asanya satta, is just a temporary state. Cannot be considered is something out of the way.
Namo I just want to check something about Satipatthana. Probably I got two friends. Before I came here, I met the Dhamma when I was in May, this year May. I met the Dhamma and I have two friends. They seem to know Dhamma very well, and then probably they practice meditation very hard. They do a lot of volunteer works, and then they, I don't know why they get irritated easily, get angry easily, and even I come to hear the Samanera. I check with them and they discourage me and tell me we should have 2 years experience on Dhamma. And then I feel very disappointed because even if I go to a Christian or I go to a Catholic, they will encourage me to join and then having all this Christian talk and this thing. And then I feel that they need to have practiced Satipatthana because to contemplate their body, feeling and mind and Dhamma, and then they should think wherever they talk, they should have understand what they should talk, I feel very disappointed because should I come here for 2 years, where I need to come here for 2 years to study the Dhamma, then I can come to do the Samanera?
The problem is nowadays there are some people, they don't really study the Dhamma. They spend a lot of time and effort and energy in meditation, but they're practicing the wrong meditation. Nowadays, a lot of people practice vipassana meditation, and their interpretation is that this Satipatthana, they think they are meditating on Satipatthana. They think they are practicing Satipatthana, but they are not practicing Satipatthana. If you look into the suttas, last year I went through the Samyutta Nikaya. In the Satipatthana Samyutta, the Buddha gave the simile of the cook, who cooks for his master, and there's one cook who doesn't know the master's taste. There's another cook who knows the master's taste. So in that sutta, the Buddha said, if a person practices Satipatthana and his mind does not enter samadhi, attain the jhanas, he is not practicing satipatthana. He thinks only that he is practicing sati sampajanya. He is not practicing sati sampajanya or satipatthana at all, according to that sutta. So a lot of people nowadays, they do some simple meditation. A lot of people go for vipassana meditation because it's easy to meditate. For lay people, they tend to go for vipassana meditation because they find their mind is so how do you say, so wild, cannot control, that they cannot practice this samatha meditation. Whereas with the vipassana meditation that they practice nowadays, they think they can contemplate this one object after another object after another object. They think that momentary concentration is easy to practice. But then that is not the Buddha's teaching. So they practice for many, many years and they waste their time. I know of many monks, after teaching vipassana so many years, they disrobe. So they just waste their time. But you cannot teach them. They think they are smarter than you. So only thing is, we hope that they will refer to the Buddha's suttas. That's why. No point to talk to them. They are smart. They think you don't know anything compared to them.
This dependent origination was realized by Buddha at the time of enlightenment. Is it true? Because this one seems to be discourse to the monks.
Not really. The Buddha in the suttas, he said that even when he was a bodhisattva, before he was enlightened, he had some understanding of dependent origination. But after the Buddha was enlightened, to really have a deep understanding of dependent origination, this Buddha spent the whole night, contemplating dependent origination. The first watch of the night, from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m., he contemplated the arising of dependent origination. Then the second watch, from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m., he contemplated the ceasing of dependent origination. And then the last watch, 2 until 6 a.m., he contemplated the arising and ceasing of dependent origination. Then only he was satisfied. He fully understood dependent origination. So dependent origination, there are many levels. Just like the Dhamma, when you understand the Dhamma on a shallow level, you become a first stage Arya. When you understand it at a higher level, you become a second stage Arya, and so on. Okay.
On Sutta 38, paragraph 24, page 358, the Buddha mentioned here auspicious signs of ordinary impulses and Brahmins. Knowing and feeling in this way, you return to the observances, samatras, debates, and auspicious signs of ordinary impulses and Brahmins.
Mm-hmm.
What does the mean of this?
It's not very clear what the auspicious signs of ordinary recluses and Brahmins mean. But in our present day, maybe you can take it like feng shui, geomancy. Okay, we end here.